Hello everyone, and welcome to today's live stream where I'll be doing some cool fur shader stuff, reminiscent of the superpowered versions of Sonic and Shadow in Sonic 3. Now I did not work on those effects, but I'm just taking a guess on how they made that. So in this case we have some fur that was generated using geometry nodes. In this case I added in just the curve fur type and did some editing to give the curves some general direction in that sense. So in this case, I could just apply all of these just to have the hair just there and we can just work with it based on that. But I think in this case, we'll leave it all procedural just in case we want to change up some stuff later. Okay. And just to wait so that some people can get into the stream, there have been some changes in the latest version of 4.4 alpha. The beta is coming in, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. I'm not entirely sure, so there will be a feature freeze fairly soon. But recently, certain parts of node groups will now only be shown and not grayed out when they're actively being used. So like in this factor node, the one that's not being used is grayed out and everything going into it will also be grayed out. If it's an input, not if it's just a value. I forgot about that. But yeah, that's very helpful, and it has already been extremely useful with large node groups like my particle system. So I'm looking into using that a lot because it's very useful for debugging and informing the users when something is being used. I'm not sure if... Yeah, no, this doesn't really have any of those at the moment, but I'll showcase that later on in the stream. Okay, now let's get to the fur shader. So in this case, we will use the hair info node, the curves info node, forgot about that, and we'll be mainly using the intercept attribute. So in this case, this will just give us the gradient along the curve, which we will feed into a noise texture. So in this case, we want this to be 1 dimension of noise. We'll set it to be 1. I think a scale of 1 is just fine. And then we will use the random input. If we go and take a look at that, it's just a random value for each curve. And we will add that to this right here. Ah, I don't have my quick favorites. That's why I feel super slow. Let's go and add that to there so that I can just add that in there. So yeah, we can have that. So we will multiply the random value by like something, yeah, 100 seems fine, and we'll just put that into the add node, not the duplicated one. There we go. Just checking the chat. On what version is the Blender NPR branch expected to be officially released? We don't know. It won't be 4.4. Maybe, is there a 4.5 or are they going straight to 5.0? I don't know. But it seems really solid, and I hope we at least get the repeat zone in 4.4 or the next one, because that has been long overdue in the shader editor for years and years and years. But it is very cool to see that the shader editor improvements, like major ones, are coming. And it's very cool to see that we're just getting some geometry node stuff in the shader editor. Okay, did you delete the last fur live stream? Yes, that one was done with very little research, because I completely forgot how it actually looked in the movie, and I was like, oh, wait, I need to redo that. So this is take 2, but yeah. Okay, so with this, we have noise, and, you know, this effect is pretty simple. We will use a map range to just go and hone in the values that we want. So here we'll keep it very bright, and then, yeah, that seems to be good. And then we will use a power node to make it even more constrained. Power, math power, and we'll set this to like 5 or 10. And we can see that the fall off is a lot more constrained, and this will work very well with the emission. So in this case, we'll go and use a multiply node just to raise this to like 100, I think. We'll go and plug that in, and then we can see that some emission is happening. But it looks really bad, and that's because the compositor is not being used. So this is another thing that's changed in 4.4. The glare node got a bit of an overhaul, where now we can just add in bloom, and we have nice panels, which is very, very cool. I wonder if the hair nodes will get panels when that gets an update. Let's see, okay, and we need to enable the compositor always. So in this case, it's a little bit too bright, so let's go and bring that back. So let's go and make this so that's just barely visible. I think in this case it's good, and we can color it in a kind of, I don't know, yellowish hue. And I think that's pretty good. Coloring the fur was a bit tricky last time, so I may just save that for later. There we go. And now... Sorry, there's some background noise at the moment. Okay, now we're going to animate the fur. So in this case, we're going to use another add node, and then simply add in the scene. No, scene time does not exist. That's geometry nodes only. Hashtag frame. Yeah, we'll just use that. And then we can divide that by whatever we want. In this case, I think, would 24 be good? That means that it does one full curve. It'll offset it by 1 every second. So it'll go along the length of the curve once every second, which may be good. Let's make that a subtract node. That's pretty good. Make sure you turn off temporal reprojection because that warps your perception of all that. Oh, ray tracing. This will take a while to enable. Let's just enable it. Oh, wow. Okay, that did not take a long time to load up. I am honestly very surprised. But it is appreciated. Turn off all of those. Maybe turn off spatial reuse. Set the thickness to be 2, and that seems to be okay in that sense. So we have that happening, and we could slow that down, or we could also give it a random speed, which maybe, actually, that might be a good idea. Let's use some frames to organize this just a little bit. And then over here, we will use a random value node with a map arrange node to say, this will range from 24 to 48, so it'll be 1 to 2 seconds. And then also over here, we can just put you into a frame as well. Make sure you keep your nodes organized because someone else will be using it, whether it's you in the future or someone else in your pipeline. So make sure they can tell what's happening within a fraction of a second. So this is just the noise / emission. And then this part is just the random gradients. And then this one is just speed or time. I'll put time. The evolution of the effect. Okay, so now if we take a look at this, we can see that the speed is randomized a bit, which is, you know, pretty good. Pretty good. So what else is needed? I think it's pretty close to being done. In the movie, the amount that the fur... So the quills usually have this effect a lot, while the actual fur, it's very sparse, and it also depends on whether the character is emoting or not, because sometimes it flares up a bit. But I think in this case, we'll just keep it very nice and simple. Here, we'll go and put a multiply node so that we can only have it on a few of the hairs at the moment. Or I could just use a greater than, which to be honest might be good. But here we're going to run into a little just logic problem right here. This is just amount. Where if we use the same random speed for everything, so the random is going to the speed and which ones are enabled. If this is greater than 0.5, then that means only the fast ones, or no, the slow ones in this case will be shown. We don't want that. So how do we make it so that we have a random seed from this random value? The way that we can do that is by using a white noise texture. So in this case, we set it to 1 dimension, and then we can use an add node so that it stays like that. So if we edit this value, we can see we get all kinds of random seeds. Now there is a chance that like 2 pieces of fur will have the same, well, it'll be a different color, but the same random color, just because they might have had the same original random value, but that's very unlikely just given how float values work. But yeah, that should be fine. So we randomize that by a bit just to make sure, you know, we don't have anything else that's in sync. So here we can see if I go and set this to be like very, very slow, there are still some that are still moving, but it's not synced up. Well, if we didn't do this and just plug this in directly, we would see that it's only the slow ones. So that's just a little tip to keep in mind because, you know, it could be a little annoying if you're like, wait, why is it not working? Okay, let's set this back to be 48. That seems to be pretty good. Now, do we dare to color the fur? Now, I am hesitant about this because fur and Eevee don't really mix all too well, especially the current version of Eevee. But no, it should be fine. Just not subsurface scattering won't look, well, we'll try it. So in this case, we'll try it, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But actually, let's see how this looks in cycles. So GPU compute, let's try this again. Way too bright, but you know, not the worst. But let's keep it in the realm of Eevee, because that's just, you know. Let's do that. That seems to be okay for the yellowish fur. I could add in some metallic stuff, but again, that looks really bad. Metallic stuff in Eevee Next really doesn't vibe with me all too well. Oh wait, the roughness. Wait. Oh, well, we gotta wait for Eevee Next to cook. Again. The Blender devs, well, in the kind of 2025 goals for Blender, they said that they're looking into making Eevee Next better with like compilation times because it is hindering their production process. I would recommend looking into that. But it's interesting that Eevee Next is hurting that aspect as well. Because it got a lot slower since Eevee Legacy, and I have not been able to adjust to that. It's gotten... yeah. It's unfortunate, but they hopefully will fix it this year. See, do we do that? I think, yeah, that's fine. It looks a bit like butter, but I don't know. I think that's the best we're gonna get in real time. Let's see, fast GI approximation. No, that's fine. Yeah, all these settings seem to be good. This is the closest that I can get it to Eevee Legacy. For work, I'm still using Eevee Legacy, which is just for stability and less iteration stuff. Okay. I haven't been keeping up with Blender. What's your favorite new feature? Oh, let's see. In 4.4... I think my favorite is the grayed out node inputs. Dang, the background noise is very nice. Sorry if you hear stuff in the background. I thought today would be more quiet, but oh well. That's what you get for living next to a busy roadway. Okay, but the hidden or the grayed out inputs. So when something's not being used, it is just straight up hidden, which is very nice. That has been extremely useful, and it'll be so great for people using node groups. I'm not sure, this will probably make it into 4.4, but with node groups, they plan to give the option for these to be straight up hidden. So let's go and make a group. So in this case, it'll be like that, and we can see that that propagates very well. If we had a switch node in geometry nodes, that would work as well. Actually, yeah, let's show this with modifiers as well, because it does work with that. So if I use a switch node, we'll see. What? No, okay, good. Here we can see that everything's grayed out because I simply just disabled it. And we can see that the input here is also grayed out as well, which is very, very nice. Like that, just that alone. I'll show you with my particle system setup, and that'll be very good. Let's see. It's all good as long as it's not you the police are coming for. Ah, yeah, you were able... well, I guess you could hear that a lot better than I thought. No, they are not after me. They are not after me this time. Yep. Let's see, I did not break any NDAs, so they're not coming after me. Let's see. What movie? Sonic 3. Yeah. That was a very good movie. Apparently it's past 440 million at the box office, which I truly did not think would happen. I am extremely impressed, and yeah, it beat Spider-Verse. Domestically or globally? I think domestically. And I am very shocked by that, because I do, you know, not, well, Spider-Verse is an incredible movie, but I'm very impressed that Sonic 3 did so well. And I am shocked that I was able to help with it. Let's see, that, well, I think this is... let's just play around with the colors and see what happens. Yeah, I think that's the best we're gonna get. Other than that, what? There's something that I'm missing. Something that I really... Oh, there's two things that are missing. Okay. Let's get the Fresnel node and bring it up here. So, do we use Fresnel or layer weight? Which one? So, if we use Fresnel, this will make it so that the emission only appears... Actually, yeah, let's use layer weight because that gives a better gradient. Let's use a map range. I want to make it so that only... the center is bright and the edges are dark to make it kind of, I guess, to somewhat simulate subsurface scattering. Or, you know what I mean. Like it's coming from inside the quill instead of just from all throughout it. Wow, that is barely visible at all. See, you can just barely... No, that is not necessary in this case. But the one thing I forgot is just to have noise on this. Oh, right, I should have probably set that to be smoother step as well. Whoopsie. In this case, I want to also have noise to just hide certain parts of the emission. So you'll see what I mean in a quick second. Let's put this over to here, set it to smoother step just because that looks better. You know, it's a bit more expensive, but it's fine. And we'll just set this so that it has a certain semi-high detail level. In this case, it'll be like that. So, yeah, that just adds a nice other level of detail to it. So that it looks like the fur is not just smooth, but has a little bit of breakup to it. So that's pretty good. And I like that quite a bit. Yeah. Still not happy with the subsurface scattering. Set that to be that much. I don't know. This makes it look softer, but we start to lose a bit. Let's also go and turn up or down the roughness. That's... Huh. That's odd. It's not really affecting... Oh, is that because of the global illumination? Or the... What was it? The... Fast GI. If I turn that... Oh, God. I wonder why that happens. Oh well. Other than that, I think this is all good. Like, I could warp the normals a bit more, but I think that would hurt it rather than help it. So if we get the... Oh wait, can I get the curve normal? Oh, that's a tangent normal. I need to look into that. It's been a while since I worked on fur shaders specifically. Let's get the geometry. And let's go and take a look at the normal. So here we have the normal. Can I break that up in order to make the reflections a bit cooler? Let's see. Let's go and use the... let's do, yeah, linear light. I'm going to mix that with that so that we can warp this. So in this case, oh, it's just barely working. So let's go and turn up the factor so that we can make the fur rougher. Now, we are getting to spaghetti, which I am not happy about. I never like spaghetti in my node setups. Everything should be nice and clean and completely organized. So let's just go and do this. And hopefully... That does pain me a little bit. Hurt me a little bit, but... It's okay. Yeah. Keep your setups nice and clean. Let's take a look, and it doesn't look rougher. Okay, no, it does look rougher, but we'll keep that in our back pocket just in case. So other than that, I want to just play around with the colors. So in this case, we'll get a hue, saturation, and value node. So in this case, we can use the random value node to offset the hues. So in this case, what do we want this to be? We can offset this so that it's more into the yellows, desaturate it a little bit. But I think this is good. I'm liking these colors. And then we can put in another one. Do we do that? Yeah, let's do that after. We'll use the intercept, and we'll go and use a 1- to invert that. So again, intercept, then 1- because I want the base of it to look like... Ooh, yeah, that could look really good. And then if we do that, we can go and make that darker and also shift the hue into more of a red. Well, now this is looking like very nice grass instead of fur. but I'm okay with that, you know? I am okay with that. Let me just move the mic up a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, it's looking more like fiber optic dried grass, but I think that's okay. See, if we just make it even... No, that does not look good. Maybe I just need to shift the hues a bit. Ooh, actually, no, I'm liking that a bit. I think that's okay. You know, I need to hone it in a bit more, but I think this is... Oh, whoa. Subsurface scattering. There we go, okay. You'll need to hone that in depending on whether it's cycles or Eevee, but it's... it's okay. They did... Last time I checked this out, the hair... Oh, wait. Oh, hair stiff is back. Oh, maybe it doesn't show up in Eevee. Okay. Actually, let's check. Hair... Yes, okay, I forgot about that. Right. The node doesn't show up unless you're in cycles, which... Fair enough. Let's try it anyway. Okay, it seems to just be the principled node. Ooh, I like those colors. Just a deep red. That's cool. And cycles. Ooh, that's looking very nice. Okay, so maybe we'll shift gears a little bit and then go into cycles, because that is looking amazing. If we go and connect this into here... Ooh, that's looking nice and golden. I think this might work. Please tell me if the denoisers are messing up the audio, because sometimes it does that. Let's see. Yeah, I am really liking that. That's looking like actual fur. Now, the lighting, you know, could use some work. You know, let's just put some more light in here to make it look, you know, just a little bit better. And then with the emission, we can go and use an emission node. Now, you don't want to use the add shader, because that sometimes is a little bit quirky with, cycles. Oh, and there's no, maybe I could keep, I don't know, I'll need to play around with that a little bit. Okay, we don't want to use the add shader node. So in this case, we are going to use this for the mixture. And then for the emission, we'll just set that to be 100. So with that, we can see that we're getting similar gradients, which is pretty nice. I've had some issues with add shader in the past, so especially with transparent emissive objects, particularly in Eevee, but I forget if that also happens in cycles. So I just kind of try to stay away from it when I can. I forget if that's still a problem. I've been jumping around Blender versions so much. There we go. Let's go and hide. Let's do, again, another cleanliness pass. Let's go and put all view into a nice frame. Let's just go and call that color. Let's see, and then this is just the shaders. Ooh, shaders. And then that's good, and then I'll just label this noise, and that'll be fine. And this will be moving noise. Moving noise. And then this will just be static noise. There we go. And make sure to put a space in there. I don't know why I capitalize all those, but it's just out of habit. And then here, let's go and organize this a bit more. I could hide that, but I forget what I need to, like, show to the audience versus just hide. I think in this case, that's all good. So there, we can do that just to compact all of this, move this down. I think this is very nice and clean enough. Could put you in there, so yeah. Making the lines and boxes all nice and neat. And all in all, this isn't too bad. Now we can, oh wow, that's actually more performant than I thought it would be. Yep, we can see that's working. Now if we go into Eevee, oh, looks fine as well. Again, no subsurface scattering, but that's okay. And there, I think it's because it's just defaulting to the principled shader. Yeah, we can see that that's working quite well. And then here we can also limit this even more or less. So when the character is rather, you know, Not too expressive, just kind of normal. It'll have a few of those happening, but then when he's really angry or something, it can be turned up to that. Now, I could make it so that those fade in, but a greater than is just simpler, if I'm being honest. What the heck, let's go and try it. So we could just use an add and then a map range. Let's set this to be smoother step. Let's go and plug that into this right here. Now, if we set it to be 0.1, we'll see that those fade in and out. Oh, subtract. Those fade in and out instead of that being like that. And you can also fade... Oh, wait. Should I also give them a random brightness? That might be a good idea. Instead of it being, like, more of a Boolean value, I could just go and say, hey, multiply it by... Oh, that on top of that. Which, again, I would need a different random value for that, so I would need to copy that. That's... I don't think we need that, but, you know, it's an option. Wouldn't be too bad. So yeah, here is a better, you know, having it fade in instead of just be a greater than. So yeah, that's pretty good. And then for the speed, we can speed it up, slow it down. I think it would be better if I just used a multiply off of this so that we can control it a little bit better. And then this is like the ratio. But I could make that a little bit better, but I think for now it's just fine. So yeah, a very simple and basic shader for this kind of stuff. Now, in the movie, they also have particles and smoke coming from the fur to kind of show the aura, you know, the Dragon Ball Z style. So, now, for the smoke, don't do that in Blender. Don't do smoke in Blender. Don't do it. Just use Embergen or Houdini. Don't do it in Blender. It'll just be a huge pain. But for particles, it won't be, you know, all too convenient, but it is possible, and I have done that before, so let me go and showcase that. So here we will have a plane with some geometry nodes. Now we'll just do a basic particle spawn in and then move up. I'm not going to add in any fancy shaders because I would just use my default, well, my actual particle system for that. So here we just have the curves, and again, since these curves are special curve data type, they'll look like they're meshed even though they're still the curve, so we can extract just that and it'll work just fine. And then what we're going to do... Oh, will this cause the modifiers to update every single frame? No, that should be fine. Okay, we will use a sample curve node. Whoops, accidentally hit caps lock. Sample curve. There we go, and then we will have points move randomly around the curves. So in this case, we'll have points. Now in this case, I'll click all curves so that this will just be the simplest it can be. And we'll use scene time for the speed. I really hope we get this into the shader editor, but the shader editor does not support constants at the moment, which has led to a lot of annoyance on my part. The texture sockets. Anyway, that's a story for another time. Yes, so we can have the position be right here, and now we have a point being moved randomly along the fur. We can make this as many particles as we want, but the main thing is we just have one per frame. Now, if I'm being honest, I forgot how to make this work with delta time, having a certain amount spawn in per... Did I have it per second? But don't worry about delta time until you need to. If you want to make something that's actually robust, implement delta time, but it can be a huge pain in the buttocks. Okay, let's add in a simple simulation zone. And we will just join this into the fold every frame. Now technically, well, actually no, we're going to do this at least semi-right. So we're just going to have the particles going over there, and those get joined in last. Always join the particles into the system last, so that you get the first frame with them in their unmoved state. Now let's do the classic thing that I've done a bajillion times. Let's go and have some velocity, and then use a set position node to offset this based on the velocity. So boom, boom, that into there, so we have that happen. Again, not using delta time because I don't want to. I really don't want to. But it's not that difficult, it's just annoying because I've done this way too many times. Again, we're not quite at the point where we can just make one particle system and then it just works for everything just due to some UI things that are being worked on. Subpanels were a huge help in that regard, so maybe in 4.4 I'll go and revamp my particle system so that's a lot more convenient, and maybe even a modifier so that you don't have to even look inside the geometry node editor. But there's still a few little hiccups. Just a few. Okay, we'll have that, have some random noise, put that into there. And we could also sample the curve normal and the tangent, but I think that's very unnecessary at the moment. So we'll set that to be 0.1. So here we can see the particles are flying, and it looks absolutely amazing. It looks very basic, but, you know, it is what it is. So I think I'll just go and instance on points at the end here. Let's go and make this a little bit more organized. I'm going to instance a cone on there so that we can have a little trail. Again, set the radius, no, not the radius, the depth be -1, this to be 3, and we can just go and change that to be like that. Again, we use the velocity to get the length and the rotation. So in this case, we'll use an align rotation to vector. Swap that for the bottom one. And if we plug in both of these, there we go. We can see that now we have trails happening, which is very nice. So now if we want this to be amped up a bit with more noise and detail and all that, we can make the noise move. We can do a lot of cool stuff. Let's go and set that to be like 8. Let's go up how many particles occur per frame. In this case, let's bump it up to a lot. Now, we're not deleting the particles because, well, that would, just having to make an entire particle system is something that I do not want to do today and will not do today. Because I've already done it, and I would might as well use the actual system I have for that. Let's go and make these particles bright. Now with this, you would want to make the particles have a random scale, random brightness, and all that so that they look a bit better. Let's actually lower the noise values for this because I think that's a little bit too much. I want it to be a kind of general, particles moving along, but actually we can do that by taking advantage of the tangent, because I was like, wait, how do I get the surface normal to do that? But I could just use the tangent and that would work out very well, which makes a lot of sense. So let's go and do this, and we'll actually set the velocity, the starting velocity, to be the tangent, just scaled down. Again, no delta time, so this has to be a very small value. So in this case, particles, let's go and turn the noise to be even less effective. So in this case, yeah, we can see that they're moving outwards. So let's go and speed that up by a bit more. I should have a random value for this, but we can see that they're generally floating up, and then, the noise takes over. Let's bump that up by 2. And let's go and add in another scale node with a random value, so that we can... I think I'll set this to... that should work just fine. Because this random value is being changed per frame, we won't see any pattern with this, because the particles will just be in a random location. So even the... Well, actually, no, we can't do that, because there's only 5, which will mean that there will be only 5 values. So let's just go and offset this by 100. It does pain me to add nodes in this way, but... wait. I think my brain is like, okay, painful or hurt, and then I just say pain instead. Okay, so in this case, let's bump this up by 2 or 3, and then set this to be 0.5. So here we can have... No, that's not fast enough. We need more. We want it to be faster. But I think I want only the Z scale to be affected. So these two will be like that. Then you will be as skinny as I can make you, without it leading to a ton of weird artifacts by it being too skinny. There we go. So we have that, and then that happens. So when the character is like flying through space, you can have that happen. You can add in random drag for all of it, but that's all up to user preferences. And then like that, I think, yeah, 1 to 10. I think that's okay. And then for the speed of the shader, well, obviously the character would be moving rather fast, and that would mean that that would have to go faster. So yeah, I think that's a little bit better. And then for the smoke, you can just have those particles, have a random particle on the fur and make them scale up and down or spawn in and then delete. Bring that over to whatever program you have, convert the particles to volumes, and then, well, have the particles be emitters. And then boom, you would have that. So that's how you would do that. So a very nice and simple fur shader. And then the particle system, well, particles. One day I'll make a particle system that'll become the new standard. That's easy to use, but it's not today. Not today. Oh, I should have given these random thickness. That's fine. The curves don't need a random thickness. Let's see. Why not do Smoke and Blender with geonodes? Because you really should not. You should not. You can mesh to point volume and do a fluid sim with each node on the points. That, I just wouldn't recommend it. I really wouldn't. Blender's smoke and volume, like the water, the smoke, are all very old at this point. So I would recommend using either the industry standard. Well, is Embergen? I think Embergen's industry standard. Well, I don't know, actually. I actually don't know. I would say Embergen would be the most convenient, like if you don't want to just straight up learn all of Houdini. But, yeah, don't do Smoke and Blender. It's a pain. Let's see, when are you planning on releasing the rigging node? It would be super useful for ragdoll animations. Well, it's already up on Gumroad, but I have to remind everyone that project is not practical. It's a proof of concept. Just because we can't get bone data into geometry nodes at the moment, and we can't get the list of vertex groups into geometry nodes. If we had both of those, I could just go and make an armature modifier, kind of like the one that we have in regular Blender, and it would work very well, which would make the system practical if you could just import your bones into geometry nodes, wobble them, and then do the deformation on that front. That would be practical, but we're not there yet. We're just straight up not. Getting generic data from bones, like custom properties from bones, so that you can set like the angle limits and stuff like that. Actually, do bone? Well, I would have to look into that. Geometry nodes, again, has lots of issues with getting outside data, which is one of the main limitations. Like, again, the camera info node, rather than having a dedicated hard-coded node for that, having the generic data inputs would be useful. But Blender, because of dependency graph issues, can't. With bones, there would have to be a bone info node or like a bone named attribute node that can get everything, but I don't foresee that happening for quite a while. So the geometry nodes, armature, rigging system, and all that, that's all inside of geometry nodes, which has tons of limitations. Could I make it so that it is good? Yeah, well, it just wouldn't be practical. Because the vertex groups, I cannot match a name. Actually, wait a minute. Wait a quick second. There's the new search. Oh, maybe that didn't get merged yet. String. Let's see. Oh, find and string. Actually, no, I don't think that would be useful in that context. With vertex groups, when you have a character, they have, you know, a ton of vertex groups. With geometry nodes, we can't search through the list of vertex groups and then match those up with, like, a bone at the moment. So that's just a logistical issue. Could be band-aided with add-ons, but again, The rigging system is a proof of concept, not practical. It was not made to be practical. It was an experiment. Something that I wanted to do for a long time, which was to replicate the wiggle bones effect, which I did. Turns out, for those of you who, did I keep that part of the stream when I was working on it? I made one version. I was like, dang, this has some issues. Let me check the wiggle bone add-on code. Turns out they did something extremely similar to what I did. Or I did something very similar to what they did. Where the bones, since they only look at their parent, if you go beyond 6 bones in a chain, it starts to exaggerate the wobble, which is just a result of the algorithm. It's not necessarily an issue, it's just a result. So both of those had that. So with that setup, it's basically done. It's just geometry nodes limitations that are keeping me back. And also it doesn't have delta time, which I could not be bothered to add. Once again, in your trail nodes, you can tell us how the self-transform node group works. You could look inside that, but it's basically an old version of undoing the self-object transform. So self-object, object info, to make geometry, and I should make the little YouTube videos that I've been doing, the vertex group limitations one and then the UV map one. I wanted to do one to show how to make geometry nodes work in global space, because that could be useful. You just transform geometry. I think it's invert matrix. You need to invert the matrix, or no, you need to do the matrix transform. You need to undo the self-object transform and then redo the transform later. Or maybe it's vice versa. I forget. That's why I wanted to make that video. So that I can do that and then just reference it later. But that's what it does. So the reason the self-transform node is at the end is because it's just doing the final thing to make sure that the simulation looks correct, even if the object origin is off base. Now, in some programs, that's just a checkbox, but in GeoNodes, we have to do it all ourselves. I went to see the movie with my family. The effects were great. I'm happy. I'm very happy. Yep, it's very surreal. It's a very interesting feeling looking at a movie on the big screen and then seeing your work. It's a feeling that I've never had before, and it's very weird but very cool. Like when the trailer came out, I saw some stuff on there that I worked on, and one big mistake. And I was just so happy, I couldn't believe it. But yeah, it was the best opportunity and best thing I've ever worked on in my life. And we'll see what happens next. We'll see what happens next. But yeah, how did you learn GeoNodes? I was there when Geometry Nodes was created, the first part. Before, it was all named attributes, which was an interesting but rather inconvenient system. And then, in Blender 3.0, they transformed it so that it was more like a shader editor, which was a brilliant play, absolutely brilliant. And then they added in new nodes, and every time a new node was added, I was there, and I looked at it, I studied it, and yeah, it was very good. But mainly, what you need to know about geometry nodes is, the named attribute workflow. You get the data, you mess around with the data a little bit, and then you set the data. It's the best workflow, even though it can be a little memory intensive. I've heard from one of the devs that that could be a thing, but also you could just remove the remove attribute later, so it's fine. But also when you store this, you're able to use it in the shader editor, which is very good. But yeah, this workflow, just using the named attribute node, keeps your node setups clean and nice. It's just the basics. The sample nodes are more complicated, but that just transfers data from one piece of geometry to another, based on the indices, or in like the curves case with the gradients, and all that fun stuff. But mainly, like with the stored named attribute, it's the best, just because it covers a lot of the bases for a lot of other nodes. Like in this case, the instance transform, which is a 4x4 matrix, you do need to know like what data you're dealing with. But the instance transform, we can just set like this. So in this case, oh, it's not actually moving it. Maybe it's defaulting to the current transform. Oh wait, no, that needs to be on the instance, right? If we set it to be this, then all of a sudden we just set the instance transform, which there is a node for that. Set instance transform. So both of these do the exact same thing now. And that's why I like the store named attribute node. It's so general. You do need some more knowledge in order to make it work, which is why the other nodes exist. But it's just so general, and I love it. It is the best node in geometry nodes. Best node ever. Yeah. Make a particle accelerator? I've already done that. Let's see. Open foam to something similar. Oh, that with the smoke and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, well, with add-ons. I'm more of talking about default Blender and then add-ons, because with add-ons, there are very cool simulation add-ons for like water and smoke and stuff like that. But if those work for you, then that's amazing. I just don't recommend using that in default Blender. Using default Blender for smoke and fire and stuff like that. Importing a VDB, that works just fine. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend simulating it in there. Yes. Okay, I think that's everything. I think I'll go and save this project and then show you the hidden or the grayed out values in the particle system setup. Because we're at 46 minutes. Yeah, we've got time. So let me go and save this because maybe I'll post a little bit of this to the social media platforms. There we go. Let's go and open the recent one, which is the sub panels. It's taking a little while for Eevee Next to cook again. So here we're just going to go and ignore, everything that is in here, because the goal of the particle system is to be convenient. Again, like the old particle system, except not ancient and more versatile. Which the old particle system still worked quite well, but it is showing its age, and it's showing its age a bit. So with the geometry nodes version, it's to make it so that you can do anything, like have trails, have anything you want, except rigid body collisions, because I could not figure that out. Let's see. There we go. Yes, so if I turn off some of these... Wait a second. I am in 4.4, right? Yes, okay, it is working. So if I go and turn off some of these checkboxes, we'll see that this grays out. And that's due to the new visual UI feature in 4.4, where if something is not being used, it's just grayed out, which is amazing. Here we can see, oh, this is one of the useful things. This is a dead input that I forgot to fix. Now, since it's showing me that it's not being used, I can go and debug that, which is very nice. When we're looking at collision, if collision is off, none of that happens. If size... that's also a dead input. Yeah, this one was a work in progress that I never finished, because I was waiting for subpanels, which, as we can see here, subpanels, very nice. It can all just be closed off by default, and then you just go to where you want, and then, you know, set whatever it is, which in this case it's the self object, and you could have an extra object right there that will be used. That works out just fine. On the visual side, you can have the trail. If it's disabled, all that gets hidden, and it's amazing. So that's very useful for just not overwhelming the user when they get into this system. They'll go over here and be like, okay, the trail's disabled, so I don't need to pay attention to that. Well, if it was all enabled, they'll be like, wait, what does that do? And now it just really nicely informs the user what's being used and what isn't. And I forgot to... Wait, no, that was there. Why does that look so rough? That's not global illumination, right? Yeah, no, it's not. Maybe that's just Eevee Next's denoising. Let's see. The subscription count has been slowed down lately, but have you given any thought of where you're gonna hang your 10K plate? 10K? Oh, 100K. I don't know. I don't see myself as a YouTuber. These streams are mainly just for, you know, little informative things. But I'm not like Curtis Holt, where I'm have a career with YouTube. This is just a cool little side thing that I just showcase every once in a while. I've been meaning to tone it down even more lately. And maybe I will still do that, because Blender Today is back. Oh, I forgot to mention that. Blender Today is back it was back last Monday, and I think there's an episode this Monday with Pablo Vasquez. So I would recommend watching that for a better, more informative stream of what's new this week in Blender. Apparently, I didn't realize it, but Blender Today was gone for a year, and I just straight up did not see that. I did not notice it. Time flies. But then again, that was a very busy year for me. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Like, again, seeing how I haven't posted like a real tutorial in like over 2 years at this point, 1 or 2 years. Again, I don't see myself as a YouTuber. But I want to put the information out there so that if someone's in a pinch with geometry nodes or something like that, they could go and look at it and then get out of a bind, which is nice. Can you still change the values when they're grayed out and locked? I believe so. Like in this case, yeah, you can change that. They're grayed out, but not locked, specifically. Now, in the future, what is planned is that, GeoNode Editor, is that in, like, this panel, you would see, like, a hide when not used checkbox, or something along those lines, so that when this is, like, disabled, all of this would be completely hidden. Which would be nice. That's another thing from the modifiers that could carry over. And I'm just really liking that node groups and modifiers, because they're kind of the same thing now, at least on geometry node side. They're just different places containing the same information. Which I wonder if one day nodes will just directly render in the modifier. No, that wouldn't work, but just a funny thought. But yeah, they're very similar, and I'm liking that a lot. And then the shader editor node groups are also benefiting from these changes, which is just incredible. Geometry nodes has helped so many areas of Blender, and I'm very happy about it. Like again, if we put in a mix node, the shader editor does not have a switch node, but as we can see, it still works. So if you had a node group with a mix shader, it would automatically disable the parts that are not being used, which is incredible. Let's see, what else? There's something that I'm missing, and I am forgetting big time. My brain had a cache clear, and I do not know what I was thinking about. Let's see. Those being hidden, yeah, I went over that. Yeah. Miss Blender Today, but appreciate your demos. They go more in depth. It's a really nice alternative. Yeah, just whenever a new node is added, it's good to play around with it yourself and see what's possible with it. Because I treat geometry nodes like a game, which you've probably noticed. Whenever a new feature gets added, I want to see how much I can push it to make the systems better. Because with subpanels, that's a UI thing with the hidden stuff. Those are very useful UI things, which will make assets, if I make them. Again, post Sonic 3, I am strongly thinking about retirement. Just because I'm like, I feel like I've completed my Blender arc, but we'll see if that happens. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, making assets and stuff like that, the goal is to make it as convenient for the user as possible, so that they never have to even look inside the complicated side, which in this case would be the GeoNode side. Because even though, like, there are a lot more Blender users, like, somewhat familiar with geometry nodes than I thought. A lot more. But it's still, geometry nodes is, like, the most difficult thing in Blender to learn. Or, well, no, scratch that. Scratch that. No, that's not true. It's the most complicated editor, just because you can do so much. Yeah. There was another place I was going to take that thought, but I forgot that as well. It's a different format, and Blender today is always about telling what's new, but to see you testing and finding bugs is something else. I do have a knack for finding bugs. 2 releases so far, I discovered bugs, which was... every time it happens, it's funny, but those usually get fixed very quickly, which I'm very happy about. And make sure, because Blender 4.4 is going into alpha, Pablo Vasquez said, put in the bug reports. Keep remembering to put in the bug reports, because those are very important. If you don't want to have a new Blender version that has a few annoying bugs, put in the reports. Now, I put in quite a few reports in the past. Some of them, well, and also make sure they're not duplicates, because I've had a habit of submitting duplicate bug reports a couple of times, and each time it is very embarrassing. But sometimes there are bugs that just show up, and they just need to be fixed, like the sculpt mode bug that just straight up makes your mesh disappear and become unrecoverable. That one, I was just playing around with the sculpting updates day 1, and apparently that bug was years old, and somehow I was the first person to report it. I don't know how I found it, but it just happened. Yeah. Do I have other examples in here so I stop replaying the exact same thing over and over again? Alright, I do have the portal, which is cool. Yeah, using the same shader. Let's go over to the coins. I do like the coin demo. It's quite nice. And also shows how the rotations are purely virtual and not real, because for that we would need rigid body physics, which I just can't do because of collision points. Collision points are the most annoying thing, which is why I'm so happy we have the sample nodes, but though that cannot handle, like, face-to-face collisions or just outputting, you know, collision points that would work with rigid body physics. But yeah, all that's good. All right, we're almost at 1 hour. We're 2.5 minutes away, so I think I'll wrap up the stream here. Again, Blender is doing some amazing things, and they have some very amazing plans for the future. One very interesting one was that they were looking to make Blender more, they either said touchscreen friendly, or for like sculpt mode, you would be able to use your stylus to get around a lot better than having to rely like on shortcuts and stuff like that, which I'm very happy about. I've been using more tablet-based apps recently that you can't use a keyboard or you don't want to. And it's amazing seeing how that UI is, just how convenient it is, instead of having to click Control-Shift, whatever. So seeing that they may be bringing that into sculpt mode is very cool. I think that'll be very valuable for people who do sculpting. Sculpting got a massive speed increase in 4.3, like a huge, I think it was like 8 to 10 times. So sculpting has been amazing. Let's see. You had some very good stuff that worked well outside the edge cases. Yeah. I have a habit of pushing things to the edge cases way too quickly. Again, I think in this case, like with the particle system, I'm trying to make the particle nodes, because for those of you, for you young people, geometry nodes started out as particle nodes. They were looking to upgrade the particle system, but they found that geometry nodes, doing it on geometry instead of particles, would be a much better use of their time. And they were right. Geometry nodes is one of the most innovative parts of Blender, in my personal opinion, because my entire career is based off of it. But one of the goals was for particle nodes to become a thing. And I did, in a sense, make it, but it has a few drawbacks that still need to be worked on. Some of them are a skill issue on my part, like friction in this case is still, it's not 100% just because of the way gravity works. It moves the particle down and then moves it to the surface, so it will always move that certain amount, even if friction is set to 1, which I still need to figure out how to make that work. And then substeps, those are pretty much solved except for moving objects, which is, again, a pain. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. I studied UX and learned that it is almost impossible to make perfect things. User input is the most valuable part. Yes. And yeah, user feedback is very important. And I also need to mention, because recently when you're talking to the Blender devs, which don't do that in the, or let me sort my thoughts so that I say this correctly. Please be respectful when you are talking to the Blender devs, and do not request features in the Blender chats, in like the dev chats. Some people have done that in recent times, and it is not the best. So remember, be respectful to the Blender devs, and remember to read the rules when discussing that. And also right-click select exists, even though, you know, some people debate its effectiveness. It does exist. The devs do look at it. So if you have just a feature request, put it in there and then see where it goes. Yep. They're making the application more user-friendly because it's giving more... they are making that application more user-friendly because it is giving more feedback when actions are taken. Yeah. And it'll also be interesting to see, now Blender can harvest a bit more data nowadays, like not a ton. But since they have like the extensions, and then Blender is now optionally connected to the internet, like right now, my version of Blender is not connected to the internet. You can see that right here. But they can see when people boot up Blender. They get a little ping when that happens because it's to, you know, refresh the extensions and all that. So they can see how many people are using Blender or opened Blender daily. Which they were very open about, like the data they collect, which at this point it's literally just a ping when you update your extensions, and you can completely opt out of it. But it's interesting to see what they'll do with that data. And also they showed there's a whole table for people who submitted like how powerful their graphics card is when it comes to Blender, how useful it is when rendering in like cycles in the GPU versus CPU, and I'm not sure if there's Eevee benchmarks. But anyway, yeah. Why is friction so difficult? Isn't the collision the most important part for that? And that works obviously amazing. Friction is difficult for, I think this is a skill issue on my part. But the problem is, what happens when a particle moves on an angled surface? Because the way the collision works in my current system is that the particle moves down, either because of gravity or another force, and then it gets moved outside of the surface, and then the velocity gets updated to either bounce or slide and stuff like that. But the problem is that when the particle moves down, it then just moves out along the normal of the surface. I've thought about ways of making it just move backwards along its velocity trajectory, which maybe I could do that with the dot product, but I haven't quite figured it out. And according to stuff like relay physics, or yeah, that's how you say it. With relay physics, that's just what you do. But then again, relay physics is not good with friction at all, from what I've seen. Maybe I just need to turn up the substeps so that's a lower error rate. And then you just go and say, hey, the movement is 0 if it goes below a certain step. Oh, and we saw a particle clip through the plane. Why did that happen? Why the heck would that happen? Oh, no, it just disappeared. Oh, it just died. Okay, never mind. But yeah, more substeps means greater accuracy, but I still need to figure that out. And also, like, I should redo this entire system because it is way too messy. It should be a lot better. And it's also 3 levels deep, potentially 4, which is atrocious. It all needs to be updated. But yeah, this is the collision system. Which, again, I need to redo, because this is over a year old at this point, and it should really be... It should be better than this. And then in terms of this... Am I doing... I think I'm already doing a vector rejection in this case. Yeah, I think that's all fine. I would need to double check all that. But on paper, like in theory, the normal and the tangent impulses, which I borrowed from the rigid body system that I tried making, those work. But it still just has a logical problem where the particle moves first and then gets moved outside the surface along the normal. Just because you sample the normal of the object and then you move the object out of there. Yeah. Anything else? But yeah, once 4.4 comes out and then we get the nice sub panels, I think I'll probably update this and re-release it in the modifier form, because I think people would really enjoy that. That would be convenient enough to use. And I would really need to go and fix up a lot of this. Oh, and also in Blender 4.4, you can now snap the node width. So if I do this, you can go and snap it, which is very cool. Lots of cool UI stuff, which I'm very happy about. I should also go and put the align instances... Oh, the align instances to camera. I should put that inside of this node group so that I can get rid of all of that. So yeah, there's a lot I could do to optimize this and make it better. These parts are the offset to surface and then to curve. Force fields, yeah, that's another thing I keep reminding myself of. And then stuff like this, I need to make just general node groups so that I can offset the values without having a ton of this happen. But yeah, a lot of stuff to do. And then the custom attributes. When we get the, what was it, the closure, where you can evaluate just blocks, you can evaluate zones just by porting them into a group input. That would be useful so that you can get infinite functionality inside of a node, and you can swap those out when you want. All that is, yeah. Did you ever try to do a trail system with the points to curve node? Oh yeah, that's what this is currently using. Like trails, I've had to make trails without the points to curve node, and it is painful. It's painful to get that set up. It worked, because people are watching it now on, oh, whoops. Yeah, it worked, but it was still very annoying to set up. But yeah, the points to curves node is great. I'm looking forward to, oh yeah, lists, I think are coming in 2025, which could potentially lead to mesh generation, which could be cool. And the points to curves node is like the kind of in that vein where it's like, okay, you take points with indices and then you create a spline based off of that, but it doesn't need list, which is a whole nother thing. But there's a lot of cool stuff coming in the future. So it'll be very cool to see. All right. Thank you all for watching. I'll read a few more comments. That should be good. I missed that you updated that. That's why I was asking. I still remember the struggle you were going through. Yeah, trails are still annoying. And the trails in this case don't have delta time, but I think that's acceptable for trails. Like, they do last a certain amount of frames, but the mesh part of the trail is still per frame, as we can see here. And it doesn't use substeps, which maybe I should do that. It would have to be a parallel... no, it's fine. I could just subdivide and post. That, perfectly fine. Don't need to worry about it. But that's the goal. The goal, again, with this is to be convenient. So you can just go and disable the trail with a click or enable it with a click. That's the point. Why don't you render them as hairs? Because hairs have issues. With the rendering system for that, I cannot turn these into the hairs that are GPU or, you know, I mean, I think they're GPU rendered. I would have to look into the code to see that. Like the special fur data type. With geometry nodes, we cannot convert curves into that, which I think should exist, but doesn't. I'm not sure if it's possible. but maybe it's not possible, actually. But these have to be actual meshes because I can't go and use that inbuilt system. And then Eevee next, and the overlay system, the viewport rendering, doesn't support accurate radius with the curves, which is a bug that I think they said was going to be changed with Eevee next, but I'm not sure if they got around to it. I think Eevee has a lot more priorities than fixing the curve rendering, so I don't foresee that happening. In Cycles, it would work just fine, but in Eevee, it's just not viable for quite a few reasons. Beyond which, you know, just having to use a different system. Is there a trick where you just use the for node tree and add your object? Yeah, but that kind of goes against the convenience part. I want all of this to work inside of one node, instead of having to reference another object. Would it make it faster? Yes, it would make it a lot faster, but I don't think it's necessary in this case. Alright, I think I've delayed the end of the stream for a bit too long. So thank you all for watching. I'm not sure when I'll stream next, just because, again, I am in a soft retirement. But we will see. Keep an eye out on socials for whenever I make something new. Again, I am on Blue Sky because the other app seems to be imploding at the moment. So I would recommend going to there, or Instagram, even though I'm still not used to the way Instagram's algorithm works. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Have a good one.